Germany invade Britain again? Clearly a universe where Germany successfully invaded the UK, but this is a thumbnail in style of TLDR News, which is a fantastic channel, I might add. Please go over there and subscribe. Love watching their content. I wonder what else we can make out from this world, because there are borders. There's clearly still a Netherlands and Belgium, but I think we've lost Luxembourg. Oh, France never got back Alsace-Lorraine, so maybe this is a World War I timeline where Germany won, but clearly Austria-Hungary fell apart again. I don't know what World War they won. They won one of them at least. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ring the bell. Hey, you know what? That's a good point. You should. I think this was a TNO reference. What if the US had a Canadian political system? Or what if the US had more than 2 parties? I still can't believe we do that. So if you didn't know, it's not really common to have just 2 major parties, because that would be crazy. These are known to be multi-party systems, and you can find them in Armenia, Denmark, Finland, New Zealand, Norway, the Philippines. It's also much more likely that political parties form coalition governments. So in this map, the red regions represents the Liberal Party, led by Joe Biden. Soda! So he's dominating the regions we're used to, like the Pacific Coast, as well as the Northeast, all of his home state of Delaware. But there's also the New Democratic Party, led by Bernie Sanders. They won a majority in regions of Arizona and New Mexico, also the entire state of South Dakota for some reason. There's also the Green Party with AOC. She hasn't won much, but she does have a couple pockets around the map. Donald Trump can be found in purple or the People's Party, but there's also a conservative party with Nikki Haley. So they're pretty split up on a lot of the rural parts of the map. Finally, there's the Chiquino block all along the border here. So if we had this Canadian system, some of the parties would have to come together to form that majority government and make concessions with each other. Seems like the Liberals or Joe Biden would have to make sure they get all 3 of these parties on their side to have just edging the... Shouldn't have said edging. I can't even say that word anymore. It's been ruined forever. To just barely make out a majority. Definitely a very interesting idea. What if Europe was much bigger? You might be asking yourself, how do you make a landmass bigger, Drew? Well, you don't. But you can make the culture, ethnicity, and ideologies from this place a lot more widespread. So that's how, I guess. So the Europe you're familiar with is still here. They still had a collapse of Yugoslavia, I see. But this new Europe has extended outward towards modern-day Russia. Russia's been completely torn apart, especially everything along this Caspian Sea here. They actually spread further than just modern-day Russia into Central Asia, even parts of Western Iran. I'm assuming in this universe, after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, we actually did carve up Turkey. Why am I saying we? I'm not European, but maybe the Americans did have something to do with that. Even as far out as deep into the Middle East and the Arabian Peninsula things are going on, these names are definitely very different than what I'm used to. We've got a European Egypt and Libya and Tunisia and all the way out to Morocco. I'm assuming in this universe what separates Europe from the rest of Africa is actually the Saharan Desert. It's always acted as a natural barrier here. I was kind of confused for a second here looking at the key. I just saw Poland for whatever reason, but that's just the example they used. I thought the entire world was like under Poland's control for a second. As a vexology nerd, love looking at the flags. There's definitely some cool ones from these new European nations, I guess you could say. I just want to know who's actually in the EU. Because remember, just because you're in Europe doesn't mean you're in the European Union. I mean, my British viewers know that. There's actually still a good amount of territory that isn't in the European Union to this day. So I wonder what this universe would be looking like. Yes, the Indo-Europeans on steroids. This person's ideal Israel. You might be asking yourself, Drew, this looks like an island. That's because it is. They have given the Jews the Italian island of Sardinia, which, you know what, doesn't look that bad. Kind of like a nice paradise. And remember that this isn't that far-fetched. There's what is known as the Madagascar plan. That's an island, but you don't want to know who proposed that idea. Some other notable proposals was to put Israel in Cyprus or Crimea, even British Guyana. Even the Japanese had what was known as the Fugo plan. They probably wouldn't have had all this. This is a little bit of an exaggeration. But yeah, there's a lot of different ideas. It's actually insane how many alternative history maps you can find online where they just put Israel literally anywhere. Sardinian Reserve. Just waiting for a map to drop where they put Israel on like the moon or something. What if Europe was united after World War II? This is known as the Pan-European Union, and this was actually a proposal. But in this universe, it's led by Macron. It also didn't get that big. At least not as big as the actual European Union today. Some of the major parties, a Christian Union, a Social Democratic Party, also a Pan-European Liberal Party. I see they secretly squeezed in an Iberian Union. So Catalonia got their independence and joined this. I'm just now realizing it's technically, I think, a country. It's not even really a union. It's not like the way the EU works, I think. We've got a united Germany. Also, the Soviet Union still exists in this year, which I think is like 2017. There's also a Yugoslavia. Most unrealistic thing about this, they somehow got Switzerland to not be neutral. Yeah, that's where it's just gone too far. There's no way this would happen. So though it is smaller than the EU, it is like an actual country. About 40% of the people living here are speaking German, 26 speaking French. Is this like a united language? One of those, like, what's that called again? I did once look up, like, it's like they combine all the languages together. Population, almost 250 million. Capital's gotta be Luxembourg. I guess technically this still could become a reality. the western United States 10 years after a nuclear war. That is why the US here is looking like basically the Holy Roman Empire. There's just a bunch of small kingdoms I think that's taken over. So there's one big one, the Northwest American Republic. Is this just a Fallout reference? All this stuff is a Fallout reference. Rocky Mountain States of America, as well as the Yellowstone National Park. That's a kingdom itself or whatever. I'm thinking the red zones are just like uninhabitable. They probably would nuke San Francisco and LA. That makes sense. Foundation of 3 counties. So this world would definitely be made up of anyone that wasn't in the cities, which is already a very interesting concept. Looks like Mexico is slowly stretching across the border. I don't think Mexico was nuked at all. Oh, the Navajo are back. State of Colorado looking a whole lot less squarey. There's too many factions to find the rightful American government, so there's just a bunch of unofficial names used. Something New California Republic. What if China continued to use their 5-colored flag? A flag from China's history. They do not use this anymore, but it's supposed to represent the 5 races under one union. Now, historically, the red represented the Han, the yellow, the Manchu, the blue, the Mongols, ways that were the white, and the Tibet were black. Now, obviously, things were forced to change here in this universe. Well, mainly just the Muslims, which are white. That's what this strip is, I guess, supposed to represent. Oh, the hue are Chinese Muslims, though. I noticed in this universe, China still has Taiwan. Is it safe to say early in the 20th century, China didn't rip apart and go through a little civil war? I say little with a quotation mark. It was actually a big civil war. So yeah, after 1912 in this universe, China maintained independence and kept the Japanese out, thank goodness. I don't think they're technically communists in this universe, but who knows? Probably not. The United Nations of China America. China America? The east coast of the US now has a very Chinese curve to it. Oh, also New England has been turned into the Korean Peninsula. New Hampshire is now North Korea in this world. Love that Florida's the new Taiwan. Miami's probably making all those computer chips. To be fair, Florida's been divided up into 2 different Chinese islands, though. New York is in modern-day Canadian territory for whatever reason. Here are the new 5 boroughs, or I don't even know how many boroughs they brought over. Everything in the West is pretty much the same. No changes to my city. There are, however, flag changes. I mean, could this be considered a flag change? It's actually just a whole new state. There's also the new U.S. state Lafayette and Charlottesville. That's a cute name. Oh, that's right. Since this is China America, we're gonna have a whole lot more population. 1.6 billion to be exact. Where are they fitting all these new people into? Well, I guess to be fair, we currently still have plenty of room with just our 33 million, but so many of the U.S.'s population is already out here in the East Coast, which is actually very similar to China's. They too have a vast majority of their people in the East, but let me just add, they have 1 billion people, a lot more than us. So in this China-America universe, we've pretty much just combined our populations. The U.S. really isn't providing all that much when you already have 1.4 billion. So any location with a black square and a white border around it has 5 million inhabitants, which in the case of Southern California, it looks like there's at least 20 million here. Pretty much every state has at least, I'm thinking 5 to 10 million in just their capital city. That's the only way you can squeeze this amount of population in, right? I mean, Texas has like multiple ones of these black squares with the white border, so white border. I mean, how else did you expect for them to squeeze a whole billion people to the U.S.? Absolutely incredible map. I loved it. 4 times as many people experiencing the American dream. How nice is that? The American Chinese dream. Big thanks to my patrons this month. Kansas was mentioned. KingBearHaze. JohnDenver. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. Archaeology. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel S. Connor Pavlik. DOOCHBAGGINS. Fredrik Tibblin.
LuxembourgLover.
Traven.
Friend.
Sebby, if you hear this,
KirinoIsBestGirl.
I love you. The Mexican 760.
ZaneyBoi.